kiddo up, and I have not even taken my hair out to brush it yet. So it's a frizzy mess of epic proportions. On the bright side, putting something in it does help. Because it's too long not to be tangled. A lot of it is different lengths because of how much breakage and all that I've had. I've probably lost inches of hair in just that. I have noticed that like my nails and stuff are growing slower now, so my hair is probably also going to grow slower now. Oh. The other doctor I have to follow up with about the cancer stuff did tell me whenever she told me that I could not have estrogen. She did tell me whenever she told me that I couldn't have estrogen, that was a side effect of not being able to have estrogen. That, you know, some things might slow down, it's harder to lose weight. Fuck. Like, it was already nearly impossible before that. Actually, I would straight up call it impossible. The last time I lost any weight, it was before I had the boys. Like, that wasn't swelling and stuff. Or related to my thyroid and just going to bounce back because thyroid. Basically anything I lost outside of health issues that were just going to bounce back because my thyroid goes up and down like a freaking roller coaster, was before I had the boys, and it was because I wasn't really eating. Yeah. For an extended period of time. With like little bits of food in between. Like, I had some pretty extensive time in my life where I was starving. So, I wonder if that actually contributes to my low metabolism. Probably. Because I spent most of my childhood in the same vein, then my young adulthood in that vein. Well, to a point. I mean, you're considered a young adult till you're like 25, and obviously I didn't have that entire time. But whenever I was 18, 19, yeah. 20, not so much. Well, no. I managed to better my situation during that time. Somewhere between 19 and 20, you know, things got better. And for a bit in the 19 stuff, it wasn't because, like, I couldn't afford to eat at least twice a day. It was more because, like, I didn't even think about it. I just wasn't hungry. And, you know, every once in a while I'd be curious about it, but, like, I just didn't think about it. You know, I'd gone through this stuff whenever I was homeless, and I just, you know, I'd felt that gnawing crap. You know, starving is not fun. But then, like, I just didn't notice, and the habit of not eating all the time was already there. You know, it just sort of became ingrained to a certain extent, and then I just wasn't hungry. I didn't know that, like, I didn't think about it. So I wasn't really eating. So I did lose some weight, and then I got pregnant, and my body said, fuck you. I actually rapidly gained weight despite the fact that I wasn't even eating that much. And most of what I was eating was broccoli, occasional chicken sandwich. And with Rowan, I did crave, like, those cheesy puffs. But it wasn't enough to gain 80 fucking pounds. Now with his little brother, it was a lot more. I was eating like a cheesecake a day, and all I did was gain back, the little bit of weight that I lost after I had Rowan. It was insane. Like, I gained more weight eating salad and broccoli than I did eating cheesecake. And I don't even really, like, I'm not even that big on cheesecake. Like, I think in the past 10 years, I've had it, like, a couple times other than whenever I was pregnant. Like, 10 years ago, almost. And, but then, I was having cheesecake every day. Like, it was the biggest craving. And I think it was probably because I wasn't getting enough calcium and stuff, and my body was just saying, you can't drink milk, so we're gonna do this. And the doctor just didn't give two shits. The doctor was like, as long as you're not gaining a bunch of weight, we don't care. But that's the thing, like, I was concerned because, like, I gained 80 pounds the first time. So craving a bunch of stuff, like that was, a big deal to me because I'm like, and I will never forget the lucridity of it. Realizing that when I was pregnant with Rowan, I craved vegetables more than anything else. And for whatever reason, my digestive issues with vegetables kind of were nearly non-existent, which was really weird because it went back to normal afterwards. Pregnancy's weird. I miss them so much. What happened to us shouldn't have happened. That judge should have been taken off the bench long before she ever saw our stuff. And afterwards, instead, she got promoted because Arizona sucks balls. She's on video saying things that any one of should have gotten her disbarred. But it was a training video. Meaning, like, she was advising people. And they at one point had this, like, on the state's website. Yep. Not only did this not get her disbarred, it got her held up as a shining example. A lot of the judges in Arizona do not enforce the law. They think that they are the law. And then anytime you run into something that, bothers to publicly criticize, the way that they just kind of try to make the concepts that they claim, are basically they claim that all these concepts need to be left up to people's judgment. And I'm like, shit fucking no. All of these things can be outlined rationally. And talking about different cultures and crap, if you're getting into that nuanced stuff, you're not after anybody who's doing anything wrong. You're after people who are ideologically different than you, who have differences, and you don't care whether it's actually hindering them or not. You just care about what you think about it. If you have to claim that you need a judgment call, and you need to decide things after what is clearly outlined, then it's not about what you say it is. And the judge that we had, it was clearly about the money. She went on and on about funding consequences, making decisions based on funding. She's a soulless being. That's what greed does to you. That's what money and valuing it over family does to you. One day she'll get hers. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. One day. Even if it's after she's dead or something. I have to believe that. Even if there isn't justice in the living world, 1,000 eternities are not enough for the suffering that I've been through. And the suffering of living without my kids. Considering everything that I've been through, this should say something. It's more suffering than I've been through my entire life. And considering that a good portion of my life growing up was made of suffering, that should say something. Because there were times, like, I actually got confused this one time because I felt happy. And I wasn't used to feeling happy. And I described it to somebody, and they thought that I was being silly. But no, I was just used to be fucking miserable because my home life was just that fucking bad. My grandfather was oblivious. Occasionally, I was to be taken off a shelf, dusted, and taught something. It's usually something fun. If it was the not so fun stuff, he wasn't doing it. If it was a hobby, he would support it, teach me. But if it was like, say, homework, a father-daughter dance, the really important stuff, no. Nobody did that stuff for me. I sat there watching everyone else. I went to the bathroom and cried. He didn't teach me to skate. He took me fishing once. Every time thereafter was me trying to teach myself. He taught me how to catch one kind of fish. Told me about another. And then I just kind of had to figure out the rest. On my own, whenever I was already a teenager. I had to pause that real quick. They didn't really listen to me whenever I said things, like, I didn't care about the price of things. I never did. Like, I didn't care if anything was from a thrift store or secondhand. I just cared that there was thought put into it, and the value that my grandmother put on things was money. The value that I put on things was not. And my grandfather, occasionally, he got it. Or at least I thought he did. And then other times he didn't. I like to think that he at least tried sometimes. Unlike my grandmother, who... her tries were more like token tries. Like, I have to look like I'm trying, but I don't actually want to try. And most of the time, whatever it was, she'd take it away later anyway. And I don't mean like, and then give it back. You know, whenever you're behaving, or take it away because you're misbehaving. I mean, there were actually times she went through my stuff. The stuff, you know, that I'd been given from thrift stores and stuff, or that I had saved up and bought myself from thrift stores. She would go through my stuff and take anything that she thought that she could sell for money. And my grandfather never figured out that she was doing pain pills. Probably because she was always like that even before she was. My grandmother... At one point we had people come to the house because Social Security actually got suspicious because they were saying like that they weren't justifying their expenses properly. And my grandmother like admitted, like they're saying we're showing that you should have a lot, you know. Basically, she was audited and admitted that she had money underneath the bed or something, you know, in shoe boxes. And that she was saving up for my college, which, by the way, she wasn't. I had nothing. And whenever I had a job at 18, she was committing fraud to steal money from me. Every cent that I saved up, whenever I had to turn to my grandfather to try and ask for money to make the rest of rent, it was already established that we couldn't talk about this because anytime I brought it up, he would just rebuff me. He would just be like, well, you gave her the information. Like, you didn't even care. And I didn't give her the information. She took it from me. There's a difference. It wasn't voluntary. And every time I called the bank, they would give me some bullshit about how she was entitled to have it. Because I guess she lied to them, told them a bunch of stuff, and they just kind of took her at her word. I've never used that bank since. I will never go back to Wells Fargo. Because that one branch did me dirty, like, several times over. Because of that one branch. I will never use Wells Fargo. She was stealing from me, and they wouldn't even do anything about it. Whenever I lost my job as a waitress because my grandmother was harassing me at work, I should have had money saved up. I should have had extra. I should have been able to pay my rent, do everything that I needed to do, and still have enough money for the next month of rent. I should have still had leeway. I should have had, you know, something left. I know what I should have had left. You know, to this day. And my grandmother, she was the entire reason I was homeless. First of all, you know, like, it was the same crap that she did to my mom, except with me, she had my fucking bank account information. And everybody was just acting like I was just magically like, my relatives are terrible. Like, any of the ones that I've ever met, like, they think I'm whatever my grandmother said. And to this day, I'm just like, okay, fine. Like, my aunt, Sherry, literally looked at me with half of my face black and blue and swollen and shit and said, you did this to yourself. Like, you fucking shit. I was a kid. I was a fucking teenager. I didn't do shit to myself. Like, you can't even justify that shit. And you know what? To this day, my grandmother always told me, you'll thank me whenever you're older. No. As I've gotten older, it's just kind of hit me, as I've not been around that stuff. As I've had better, as I've done better than she ever did, as I've done what my mom did, which was not do those things. My mom was awesome. Sometimes I don't even understand how they were related. Because my mom was a very warm person, very kind. And she taught by example. There was this time that we didn't really have all that much, but we had a little bit left after everything, I guess, and my mom had just put gas in the car, and I don't even remember where we were going, but this is before food stamps were as available, and there was this guy. You could see his ribs on the side of the road. He he just had a sign saying, "We'll work for food." He didn't want money. And my mom, she told us as she was going through the drive-thru, why she was doing everything that she was doing. She said, if somebody's starving, we were like, well, why a Happy Meal? And she told us, why not soda? And she told us, whenever you've starved, you can't eat a lot all at once or it'll make you sick. Well, soda's not good for you if you're dehydrated. My mom was where I learned the concept of help people, but don't force your values on them. Don't make your don't make your help become hurt. This whole thing actually became a whole discussion about different ways to help and make sure that you're not forcing something on them, you're not hurting people when you think you're helping them. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and those were things that my mom had already learned. So, it became a whole big car discussion. I don't even remember where we were going. I just remember that my mom was very kind and very thoughtful, and that whenever I asked my mom, whenever she said, and don't let too many people see you doing it, she said it was because some people will just take advantage of you. I don't know. I've always thought that maybe it was then that I started thinking it. Whenever you display things that you do, you kind of cheapen them. So I don't know. There's things that don't even end up in my journal because I just don't have the time to put